Hey devs, April here. Welcome back to the Appian Community YouTube channel. Today, we're here to celebrate the first Appian release of 2024. Now, we have a lot of great new developer-focused learning content every week on this channel, so make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications so that you never miss a video or live stream. In this live stream today, we're going to be going through some of the developer highlights from 24.1. You can actually get your hands on these new features right now by checking out the beta of our new Appian Community Edition experience running on 24.1 EA. So we'll drop the link in the chat so you can play along with some of these features at home. I have two very special guests joining me today to give two different perspectives on the release. So we have an Appian product manager with that internal perspective, and then we have a principal consultant from one of our Appian partners giving an external perspective of how you would actually use it out in the field. I'm going to be monitoring the YouTube stream chat throughout, so ask your questions and I will pose them to our expert guests. Without further ado, it is my pleasure to bring out Pete and Nicole. Hello.
Hello, everyone.
Hey.
All right, so let's do some quick intros. Nicole, you're a new face to the community channel, so why don't you introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm very happy to be here. Thanks, April. My name is Nicole Walter. I'm a principal consultant with Mastodon Technologies. I'm a certified lead developer, and I've been doing Appian for about 6 years. I'm very excited to take a look at everything today.
Awesome. And Pete, you're a pretty recognizable face, but for anyone who may not recognize you, who are you?
Hey, I'm Pete Lewis. I'm a product manager at Appian, and my focus is in our data fabric and records part of the product. I've been working with Appian for about 9 years, and I spent some time as a trainer, so you might see some old training videos with me. In the last 5 years or so, I've been working on the product side, hoping to make our products better and better.
Awesome. So yeah, between the two of you, a lot of unique perspectives of, hey, I'm actually using this. Hey, I'm trying to teach people how to use it. And hey, I'm actually trying to build the future of what this is going to be. So a lot of great perspectives. Make sure you throw those questions in the chat. So today we're going to do a bit of a walkthrough by going through a sample app use case. So let me just tell you a little bit about the sample app. So the city of Tysons, Virginia, which is where Appian is headquartered, wants to encourage more food trucks to come to the DC area and serve the Tysons community, but they don't want to be overburdened with managing the onboarding, permitting, scheduling process. And they also want to make it easy for their residents and office employees to browse food trucks in their locations. So this is kind of the context of this app. And yeah, let's jump into it. I actually, for the first time in over a year, I'm going to be the one trying to drive at the same time. So give me a little bit of grace here. I'm not used to taking this role as well. So the first thing I would like to notice on this taste finder thing that you're seeing right now looks pretty good. I see a collapsible sidebar layout. I see a Google map. So Nicole, if I was to ask you, is this a portal or a site? What would you probably say?
Well, I'd want to say site because there's certain things I don't associate with portals typically.
Right. But this is actually a portal. So Pete, can you tell us some of the new things that we have with portals in 24.1 to help bring a more modern experience to portals?
Yeah, I think one of the most exciting parts is that sidebar on the left. So you might notice that from sites, but now we can use this on portals as well. So if you want to show the navigation on the left-hand side, you can do that. And it's really great for sites like this that are a little bit more minimal, and you may not have quite as many different links or places that you want to go to. So it's really easy to show just that sidebar. And April even showed you the collapsing and expanding of it. So you can make it small and put it out of the way if you need to. And it's a great new addition to our portals framework.
Yeah.
And also, sorry, April, that makes me curious about the sidebar, especially looking at things that are collapsible. Often we have the opportunity to make them collapsed by default or not collapsed by default. Is that something that we can do with the new sidebar?
So the new sidebar is going to be open by default, but it will remember you. So once you collapse it, then the next time you come in, it will remember that you had collapsed it and show it as collapsed.
Okay, and that would be until I refresh my cookies, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
The joys of internet browsers. Cool. So we have some other visually interesting things going on here. I mean, Google Maps component anyone who knows me knows I'm a big fan of the app market. The app market was my first baby here at Appian. And when component plugins came out, it was so exciting. And I loved using Google Maps. But if you wanted to use it in portals, it wasn't a possibility. And now it is. Portals now supports a couple of the component plugins we have, including Google Maps. There's another map component that I'm forgetting the proper name of right now, and then also the rich text editor component. So that's pretty exciting stuff too. There's one other interesting thing here, just from first glance, without touching anything at all. Pete, from an interface perspective, what is it? Do you know? Can you tell us?
Yeah. So when you guys might have come into this page, maybe you thought that side section with the all food trucks was part of the portal. It's actually not. So this is a new component that you can add to interfaces that is a pane layout. And this is something that we're really excited about because it's really going to provide a lot more flexibility for interfaces, especially when you have a couple of distinct sections here, right? Where you have that navigation on the left where you can see the food trucks and the map in the middle. So the great part about the pane layout is it enables you to independently scroll the two sections. So you can scroll down on that all food truck section and then keep your map centered in the middle on the right.
Yeah. And with panes, I mean, how many panes are we talking here?
You can have up to 3 total panes
Yep.
within your layout. Most interfaces are probably going to use 2, one for some navigation on the side and one for a larger section in the middle, but you can use a third one if you need to. A lot of times that's used for things like email or messaging style views, or you may even have something where maybe it's a single page site or portal and you don't want that sidebar navigation. The pane layout can also act as some of that navigation too.
Yeah. Nicole, first reactions, first thoughts about the pane layout.
Well, I have a couple. I think it looks really modern, and I especially love the little divider bar at the bottom of each one. It feels really neat. I do wonder, though, when I think about loading a lot of options into a pane like that, like typically I might have something like a paging grid where I can make sure that I've got good performance without loading in too much at once. I'm curious here if there's like a maximum number of items I can load into the pane, or if it's performant enough that I could maybe throw like 1,000 in and it won't load all of them until you actually start scrolling.
Yeah, so there is no maximum number of items you can load. You can just put whatever you want to within each of the components, and just think of them as independently scrollable. So it will still render all of the components within that space, but you can scroll each of them independently. Now, there are some things that you may want to consider with performance. Probably you don't want to pull in 10,000 items and display them in the pane just because you can. So there are still some things that you want to think about when you're designing to try and make it perform well. And realistically, if you're dealing with a huge number of items, there may be better design paradigms for that anyway, right? Like maybe you have some kind of menu where you can expand things and see more, or search for things to find them more easily.
I'm curious, Nicole, because you asked that question, like, when you're out there in the world as a lead developer, how are you thinking about how much data to get back and what to show and how to make performant applications? Because it sounds like you're maybe afraid of the performance implications of not having limits. So, what are your best practices there?
Well, anytime you might want to load everything in all at once, that's going to strike fear right into my heart. I do agree, though. Yeah, it would make more sense to not put 1,000 items. I would hate to have to scroll all the way to the bottom. It does make me think, though, about like the drop-down component where you can add that little search bar so you can narrow down what you're actually searching for in the drop-down. Is that I don't see that here. It seems like that might be out of scope currently, but is that something that is like down the line for a component like this?
Yeah, that's not necessarily something with this component. The main goal for this component is defining a layout. So we're primarily using the existing components that we have, but it's definitely, something that we can consider in the future for how to continue to improve these user interfaces.
Yeah, let
Well,
me open
note,
it up just to see. Go ahead, Nicole.
That also makes me curious. Is there any? It looks like you're just doing rich text in that component for now. Are there any limitations on what I can put in there?
Nope. You can add anything that you could have within a rich text in other components. You can add to the pane layout as well.
Yeah. So we can see here, like if I'm on this if I'm in my interface for that portal site in the palette, we don't see those there because it acts as a top level layout, right, Pete? So if I just go into a blank interface, I'll be able to see that that is one of the options there that I can drag over, and then it's just giving you those different areas to put stuff in. So yeah, this is less thinking about it like a grid or like something that's displaying data, and more like, hey, this is just another container that you can put whatever you want in, right?
Mhm.
Okay.
And there are, or sorry, I was just going to point out there are a couple nice examples too. I don't know if you want to show any of those, April. Just undoing this and going back to the templates. You can take a look there and see some of the nice pane layouts there too. I think like the message inbox is a pretty cool one. It should be down towards the bottom. Yeah.
All right.
There you
Ooh.
go. So here's an example with like independently scrolling message sections and then the text section.
Wow. Yeah, I always I get really excited about new features and stuff, and I forget to check out the templates and see like what new ones maybe have been added there. So very cool. All right. So with portals, just any other notes on records? So I know there were a couple updates with the types of records you can use in portals or record functions in portals. So if you could give us an update on that, Pete.
Yeah, so now it's easier to query synced and unsynced record types from portals. And you can also use the function abang query record by identifier in portals. So we're continually trying to make improvements to make it even easier to develop in portals and making it consistent so that you're developing the same whether it's in a site or portal or other interfaces.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's the consistency is definitely something we're seeing from, when Portals was first released, and it took a few extra steps to actually even get it published. And now, you can basically do everything right from the Portal object, including, make a service account directly from here, add
Mhm.
it to the groups right away so it knows like exactly what it needs to do, and different things like this. So yeah, Pete, did you have something you wanted to say on
Well,
Portal?
I think it's one of those things that I get really excited about as a product manager, where sometimes these things maybe aren't as flashy, but they result in a better overall experience. And often the way our release process goes is we want to try and release something out to get you all the functionality as soon as possible. And especially with portals, we looked for ways to get it out as soon as we could. But we've continued to come back and refine and improve the overall design experience. And I always get really excited when we come back and really flesh out and make the whole experience good.
Yeah. No, it's always fun to think back, oh, what did this take to do a year ago? And wow, it's so much easier now. Nicole, have you used a lot of portals, for clients, or have clients been interested in it? Do you see more portal use cases in your future?
Yeah, so that's something that brings a lot of value, because you've had a lot of conversations with clients where you have to explain that in order to do something in Appian normally, you have to have a license for your users, and that's often somewhat of a big constraint. So being able to bring in unauthenticated users is really valuable. I will say one of the pain points with working with portals has been that you can never be entirely certain if everything fully matches what you can build in other parts of the app. Like the differences between a site and a portal can be somewhat pronounced, and you sometimes have to kind of change your design pattern a little bit to make it fit in the portal, where you wouldn't have to as much in a site now, especially now that you can do things like group your pages together.
Yeah. Yeah, the page group is another cool one. I could just show quickly. If you just, add a group, it's as easy as you add the group and then you can add pages within it. So, you know, I I'm not the best driver here. I like to be able to have real data, but it is a lot of pressure when you're the one behind the keyboard. So anyway, we can see the nice preview, and super easy to set up. So streamlined portal development. Nicole, to your point about, sometimes things are incompatible, and even though with every release there's more things that are compatible, right? We're reducing the number of incompatibilities. There are some things that are just like, it's always going to make sense that it's not compatible, right? Portals are for unauthenticated users. So any group user functions kind of makes sense that they wouldn't work. So we actually also now have more portal guidance right within the interface designer. So for example, I just tried to use a is user member of group function, and it's telling me, hey, that's incompatible with use in portals, right? So also a lot more along the way where I don't have to get all the way to the publish step and wait for it to publish to see, oh, that didn't work. I can see right here from interface designer, which is really nice. Let's see.
Yeah, and I think that's again just an area where we're trying to make it so that you understand the information you need when you're designing, right? So you don't have to wait to do a separate step. You can get information directly where you are and design your interfaces so that they can be used in all the environments very easily.
Yeah. Yeah, if anyone in the chat has any portals questions. Oh, there is a question. Let's see. Pickle Games. So is portals now available on your own cloud instance?
So not yet. We don't yet support portals for self-managed customers, but it's definitely something that we're considering, and yeah, we're continuing to make an investment in portals. So always excited to introduce some of these new features.
Yeah. No, I mean, 4 releases a year. There's new stuff coming all the time. And yeah, chat, feel free to ask any questions you have, not just of Pete and product questions, but of Nicole and, hey, how are we actually using these questions? Oh, let's see another one. If I want to ask if you can install Appian with Docker in Windows and with Docker desktop. I don't know if you know the answer to this, Pete. I might have to go look that up.
I'm not certain, so we might
Yeah.
have to follow up afterwards.
Yeah,
But
we'll follow up with that question afterwards. But yeah, the iterative development of Appian, it's the same as you're developing projects, right, Nicole? You're not delivering all of the functionality up front. This is why we do sprints. Like, let's get you something that you can use and then delight you with every future sprint with the more that we're able to add, right?
Yep, absolutely. Bicycle, motorcycle, car. That's the little picture, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
I've never heard that before, but that's pretty good. Cool. Okay, so just a couple other things on portals. So we also have a new portal monitoring within our monitoring view. So this will let you see things like error count and different things like this, and you can click in and download a log and stuff. So just making it a little bit easier to find and troubleshoot things. Whereas before, I don't know, Nicole, have you ever tried to troubleshoot a portal before?
A couple times, and I've spent more hours than I'd like to admit pouring through the logs.
Yeah.
It does, looking at this, it does make me curious though. If you could bring up that error again, or the error count. Is this, so if like you have the details in the logs, is this everything that I would expect to get from the logs? Or is this more of just a notification that there was an error?
yeah, this will bring up all the errors that you had in the logs. The logs do have some more information too. So you can always download those and just get a little bit more context if you want to. But the goal was to try and surface the error messages here so you can get one place to quickly review and see what the errors are.
Yeah, this is what you're here for, Nicole, to be the voice of the developer audience and ask the hard-hitting questions. We did get another question in the chat going back to the pane layout. So go back, let's pull up this message inbox again. Just scratching my head around the message inbox for IT management system, where there are like thousands of messages, or are you able to add pagination? I never know the correct pronunciation, but yeah, Pete, can you speak to that about what if there is thousands of messages? How can we put pagination into this?
Yeah, so keep in mind that this really is just a layout. So you could still add supporting functionality to add pagination if you want to. Really, this looks like a nice card layout with some rich text in it. So if you wanted to add some paging at the bottom with some more rich text, that's certainly a way to do it pretty easily from here. So the goal is just to primarily give the flexibility for the different layouts and allow them to, to have separate information that can scroll. So probably a lot of the time you're not putting, a whole lot of items in there, thousands of items. It's generally going to be a smaller number with maybe some paging information at the bottom.
Yeah. And I don't think, Nicole, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like it's not totally abnormal to like build custom pagination into different interfaces, right?
No, I've done that in multiple places.
Yeah, and especially with local variables and everything like that, it's not too difficult to implement. I guess maybe there could be a live stream someday about all the ways to get and display data in like nice bite-sized chunks. Got to come up with a nice name for that. We'll see.
Yeah, like some designer best practices or something
Yeah.
like that. Yeah.
Um, okay, this is great. We have another question. Colin
Awesome.
says, with portals remembering that sidebar position with page loads, does that mean that there might be more places in the future that we might be able to take advantage of browser caching for user data?
That's a good question. I think for now it's just in that area. There are some things in Appian that will remember where you are. For example, in the Appian Designer, when you come in and you can tell whether you're in the Explore view or the list view of your items. But it is something that we've considered, and we will continue to make changes that make sense for where we can remember information.
Yeah. I'm Colin, share if you have ideas for what kind of things you would want to use that for. That's what PMs love to know, not just can we have this, but hey, I have this idea for why I would want to use this. Pete, please tell all your PM friends. That's kind of usually a better approach. But yeah, thanks everyone for your questions. Let's keep pushing through a little bit. So we talked about portals, talked about some portal stuff. Let's go into some site stuff. So this is our internal city of Tysons. This is where we're keeping track of our trucks and everything like that. So we have our nice site here with the same collapsible sidebar, but now you can see my user information and the Appian waffle because now we're inside the Appian experience, right? So one of the new components that we have that maybe we'd want to add to this truck summary is our new KPI component, right? So it's always nice when there's like a new way to just add something very easily, especially when it's record backed. That's one of my favorites. So maybe we want to say, hey, for these, I want to know like what's the average amount of money people are spending on an order. So let's do orders and let's filter by, this current truck and do all that good stuff. Maybe Pete, can you shed some light on like record backed components and how they display and make life easy while I'm setting this up? Because it is hard to talk and type at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. So adding more support for things with records has been a really key part of our approach. We want to make it so that anywhere that you're using data, you can reference and use record types. So that once you've set up information about the data model or how you want to use the data, it's even easier to use it in other places. So this is actually something that we've been doing a good bit of recently. We've added some components that are specifically for records, like you might have seen in the last release. We released things for checkboxes and dropdowns, where you select a record type as the source for those, and then it makes it easy to choose the options. So again, this is a component where you can add in the source record type, easily determine the calculation you want to show, and a lot of the goal is to just make it much faster to develop. I mean, again, we've taken, what, 30 seconds, a minute here, and you've been able to create this KPI to show key information about this record.
Yeah, and there's a lot of other customizations and things that you can do here, but and again, this is one of the things I think is really cool about Appian is like you can use Sail to build a lot of this, and like you could build these KPI components and make it into its own interface that you could call from other things. And now it's just like, oh, it's just built into the product, right? So it's makes life much easier. So it gives you time to think of, okay, what can I build next? Nicole, do you have any like favorite things that you've hacked together in Sail and then, years later, oh, it's suddenly now much easier and I don't have to do that anymore, but I still feel fondly about it.
Yes, something like a global is null or empty rule is very satisfying now to just rip that out and replace it with a bang everywhere I possibly can.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's quite a few of those. I like going to the functions page and seeing new functions.
Yeah.
I think you mentioned for the KPI component, this is for synced records only, right?
Yeah, I believe this is just synced records. Actually, I can follow up on that and make sure, but
Were you
I
looking
believe
at
it's
the
just for
chat,
synced
Nicole?
records.
Someone just asked that in the YouTube chat. Were you
That's why I'm here.
was it just some remote connection?
Bit of a
Cool.
mind meld.
All right, we'll let Pete look that up while Nicole, let me ask you. So synced records, they've been out for a while now. What has your experience been using them? When you're starting new projects, is that like now the primary approach? Or with old projects, how much have you maybe refactored to start using synced records? Just curious what your experience has been there.
So I'm of two minds about it. And the first is it's new and it's powerful. So especially building out a new application, we just like by default, we're using synced records because it just makes sense. But I also like consistency in the code base. And for a lot of older Appian applications, which are a lot of the ones that I've been working on, have been ones that have been around for many years, there's not typically a strong desire to go and just do that kind of tech debt work of erasing all the CDTs and replacing them with synced records. And then there's also sometimes I feel an aversion, which I think makes a lot of sense to not have some kind of mix of both, but to keep it kind of consistent. That's been my experience.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And for most things, right, like with the new version of Appian, you just get the free power upgrade. But this is kind of like a bit of a paradigm shift, right, Pete, that requires a little bit more work to set up your sync records, especially if you're coming from something else. But once you have them, it's like, oh my God, the return on investment is crazy. Pete, what do
Yeah.
PMs recommend when it comes to how to approach balancing like older apps, synced records, etc.?
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's a lot of power with synced record types, so I always try and encourage customers to adopt them as much as they can. And even in scenarios where you do have existing applications, there's often good places where you can make a targeted investment to introduce some synced record types and then utilize them for specific areas. So one instance, for instance, is to create a report, right? Like maybe you're trying to introduce a new report or some analysis for your customers and your users, and you just introduce synced record types only for that report, right? So all the process and existing interfaces can remain the same if they've already been built from several years ago. And you introduce the synced record types just to be able to easily query and set up your reports. And I think part of the big power is we also wanted to make it really easy to set up synced record types. So it should be just a few minutes, especially if you already have existing tables, to create those record types and add them to your application.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think also, okay, I'm clicking around a little bit here because I had a few trains of thought, but let me just let's just take a step back and keep going. Maybe we'll come across it. So, talking about some other exciting new features that developers should be excited about. So, one of them, we have uh, this way to input new trucks into our site. But the thing is that we have a multicultural workforce and we have people who speak different languages working here. So we want to be able to easily internationalize our apps. And translation sets has made that like so much easier. But now we also have the ability to test it in a much easier way right within Interface Designer, which is really exciting. Nicole, first reactions, first thoughts on this.
Yeah, so I had a project once where we were creating two different dictionaries for English and French that we were referencing for every single label, and it was very very big time sink to have to log out and then log back in as a different user, even just to test changes on a single interface. So I'm a big fan. There's definitely more languages there than I would typically create different versions for in an application, but it's nice to have the options.
Yeah. Yeah. And setting up those translation sets is really easy, right? You create your thing, you can generate the translation strings and go over and update them easily. Uh, Here's my translations, right? So it's as easy as once you have the strings and the languages you want, you can export them and fill it out in a spreadsheet, just re-import them, and Appian will know, hey, okay, find and replace whatever I'm referencing, this field or this piece of text. I use this translation string depending on the locale changing. So
Yes.
it is awesome.
I just want to say, April, I love seeing that. When I was doing it, we had a massive text document where I had to go through each line and change the equals on each of it. And it was many hours of my life. So I'm very happy to see that.
You don't like doing that? That's not fun for you? Cool. Yeah, I mean, the preview thing is just awesome. I love being able to test and preview as much as I can in Interface Designer, right? Like, there's a bunch of options for that. I mean, Pete, I think you joined before like all of these were options or even were options at all, right? I don't know.
Yeah,
dating
absolutely.
you too much?
I mean, I've joined so long ago that Appian was just 2 columns, at that point. So it's amazing the difference that we've had in the last 10 years or so. But I think this gets back to what we were talking about earlier, where trying to put this in a place where you are getting the feedback immediately in your interface. You don't have to go anywhere else, just like we saw with the portal's design guidance. You can test everything directly here, make sure that everything's working immediately, and it's just going to be that much faster to develop and make sure that everything is correct.
Yeah. No, it's pretty awesome. The more you know, the more power you have here. We do have a question on translation sets, which I'm not sure if you know the answer, Pete, but we do actually have a translation set specific, like internationalizing Appian live stream next month. So this might be, if we don't know now, we can tell you then. Are translations in the scope of using AI? Like, I guess the question is, can you use AI to help with translations just within Appian? It's kind of how I'm interpreting that question.
That's a good question. I'm not sure we have any specific features with translations and AI. I mean, I know I've seen people use this in the past. I know even before we introduce things like the AI skill, people use integrations to communicate with other systems and get translations, and you could use AI in that way. It's something that we're making large investments in AI and trying to identify the best places to help out. And we're really looking both for developers and for users, right? So I think this is a good candidate of something that could improve the designer capabilities. So.
Wow. Thanks for the question, Sergio. I'll make sure it's on the agenda to discuss during our internationalization live stream next month. We got another question. Does this work for instructions in text fields too? So anywhere that you see this kind of add translation string, you can add that and kind of say, hey, here's the value. So throughout the application, like if I have this value that's like, here's the instruction, I can give a description, notes for translator, right? And then that would appear, kind of be added to our list of translation strings. And we could import those new strings here. So yes, you can use them for instructions. I'm losing myself in the tabs here. So, and you can, add values right from there too. So you could do this as a one-off, or once you build the entire interface the way you want it, then there is a generate translation strings from interface button that will just make all of those for you, makes it really easy to export it, send it to your translator, get the values back, and re-import it back into Appian. And that'll do all that work for you. But you can also do it as a one-off. So hopefully that answered that question.
And one thing that is really cool about the translating text as well is that we've also added support for dynamic text.
Oh, yes.
If you have rich text, or if you have things, a lot of times when you're translating information, maybe you want to make a sentence and you want to put a number in that sentence and plug it in as part of a larger translation. A lot of times that's difficult because different languages order their sentences in different ways, right? So we also have support for creating dynamic sentences or creating dynamic text and adding rich text support for them too. So I'm sure that April, you'll probably talk about that a bit more in the next live stream, but it's something that I was really excited about because that was very difficult without a feature to support this.
Yeah. No, that's a really good point. And also, Pete, you're the data fabric records guy, so let's ask the translation set PM those harder hitting questions next month. Yeah, and translation sets, they also support languages where it's right to left versus left to right. And in terms of number of languages, I mean, we have a bunch right now. Are there plans for more, Pete? Do you know?
We're always evaluating. So if there are customers or prospects or folks that are really excited about a new language, then we are evaluating those, and we have added several languages over the last few years as well. So yeah,
Cool.
we have the
Um,
framework now, so it's we're even more excited to try and get more customers that are using different languages.
So I guess developers out there, go find projects you can work on with other languages, and then we'll try to try to get those in. Um, any other thoughts, Nicole, on translation sets, or anything there that you wanted to give your reaction to?
I'm glad you asked, because I did have one thing that I was
Okay.
thinking about. But can you open up the list of languages again from the dropdown?
Yep.
Yeah. So in terms of like the scope of languages, yeah, what I'm getting is that you can't add a new language here. But what I'm wondering about is, like, we define the translations ourselves, right, when we're building the translation set. So if I wanted to add a new language, I could theoretically just pick a language like Russian and add like Latin translations in there if I wanted, right?
I feel like
You might.
technically, yeah. Right?
I think the challenge is that in addition to the interface translation, there are some things in the base product, right? So
Mm,
like if you went to your profile menu, for instance, the information in your profile menu will be in that language. So
Okay.
that might
So
make it a little bit more challenging for that kind of an approach.
if I think about like clicking on the Appian waffle, if someone's set to Spanish, my interfaces need a translation set, but the system things will already be translated automatically.
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah, if that's your locale. But I guess for the use case of maybe their Mastodon's having a hackathon of using, Dothraki and Klingon and things, I guess you could just say, okay, I'm gonna put the Dothraki these fake language translations into the Russian bucket or the Korean bucket. But yeah, I guess it is just text strings at the end of the day, but Appian's doing a lot of work to make sure that the right text strings are getting replaced once you define what those are.
Yeah, and that's where something like Arabic, for instance, right, has a lot of impacts beyond just the word. Like if you change to Arabic, then the entire interface will swap to read right to left instead of left to right. So there are a lot of other parts of the platform that update on the language, not just the interfaces.
Um, cool. All right. I know, Pete, you had mentioned to me that you wanted to show something in Process Modeler. So I'm going to go to the process model for this one and let you talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely. This is something that I'm really excited about, and I know we've had developers ask about for a long time. So you you might have seen before in the process details that it would tell you information about variables, but it would often list it in a pretty long text box, right? But now we have added the same kind of formatting that you get in expression rules in here, where you can see the breakdown of different nested objects. So if you have a record or a CDT or something like that, it'll break it into each of those individual items and format it. A couple other things to point out here. So you might notice those little like icons next to those fields. Those are actually scenarios where we identify any record fields that have changed. So it can make it easier to debug and to write the information that has been changed using the write records node. The last thing that I'm really excited about, April, if you go to that icon all the way on the right, you can also expand this. So not only can you see the information directly in the process history view, but now let's say that you want to test something out in your interface. Great, you can come in here, you can copy the expression from here, plug it into your interface, and then you'll be able to directly replicate exactly what your users were seeing in the process, right? So it should be a lot easier to troubleshoot, a lot easier to make sure that you have the right data, and you don't need to worry about parsing a big block of text anymore. So really excited about this one.
I will say you got a couple of +1s. This is amazing. This is awesome. Yes, in the in the chat there. So
Yeah.
let your team know this is well appreciated. Nicole, what do you think? Are you happy about this?
Yes, the second this live stream ends, I'm going to go on a call with my client and demand we upgrade to 24.1 as soon as possible. Now that I've seen it.
Well, GA is out on Friday, so we're very close to it. And reminder, we have our new Appian Community Edition beta experience where you can get your hands on 24.1 EA right now. So drop that link in the chat another time for you. Anyway, all right. What's next? Wow, time is really flying here. I think there's so much to cover. You can check out the recording of the product announcement live stream from last week that goes through every single update. And we'll have to definitely have more live streams digging into other features, but especially as we have our wonderful Data Fabric PM here, I thought we should probably look at Data Fabric analytics, self-service analytics. What do you think, Pete?
Sounds great to me. I'm always excited about it.
So for anyone who hasn't experienced this yet, can you just give us a brief, what is this?
Yeah, a lot of the goal for introducing our data fabric analytics is to make it a lot easier and faster for users to get insights into their data, right? Before this feature, Appian developers could always build reports, create charts, grids, different ways of visualizing their data, but it always required a developer to go in and create those components. Now we've given the capabilities directly to users. So users can go in, they can explore the data from different data sets, and they can easily add filters, different visualizations like April's doing here, and quickly get insights into their data. And really the biggest thing that we've introduced for the 24.1 release is now you can save these visualizations. So in 23.4, you could discover, you could analyze different things, but now if you want to, you can save one of these reports, you can share it with your colleagues, and it makes it that much faster to come back, review this information, and really explore your data even better.
Yeah. So I'm just taking this time just so I can focus on the hands-on and work through kind of building this report. It's a much simpler interface and probably more similar to typical like business analytics tools that people might be used to using to create reports. But Nicole, what is your initial reaction? Are you skeptical about this? Are you excited to give the power to your users? How do you feel?
Well, I'm a fan of anything that'll get the users building out their own functionality. But I do have some concerns or maybe just some questions. Thinking about like implementing something like this, like when I build something in Appian, the expectation my users are going to have is that as a developer or like maybe just as a system administrator, I have the ability to kind of have ownership over what's built in Appian. And if they have an issue or they want something changed, they expect that they can come to me and I can fix it for them. And so something like this, I know you can have like, I'm thinking like you have a finance department and they want a visualization of their data. So they have one person make it and they share it with the rest of the department, right? So if they have something they want to change, but they don't know how, is that something where I can like go in on the back end and change it for them? Like as a system administrator, do I have that access to edit these things for a user, or do they kind of have to edit it themselves?
Yeah, that's a good question. So at the moment, when a user creates a report and saves it, they are the owner. So it isn't possible to have another user come in and make changes to any reports that they create. But we are continuing to invest in this area, and we want to make it easier for both end users and developers to be able to utilize these. A couple things that I wanted to mention too, one of the things is we're not necessarily trying to eliminate all the reasons that you currently build reports in Appian, right? There are things that we know that people want to do. You may have a better sense for what kinds of analysis your users want to do, and it may still make sense to create those reports, expose them in your existing sites that you already have. The goal for this is really to make it so that if there's one-off things or if there's a random request that you get and the customer says, I really just want access to this one thing to answer this one question. Now, they don't really need to involve the developers, right? they can just go in, they can access the data themselves, and it makes it a lot easier. The other thing is that we still have some governance around this. So you as a developer can decide which record types are exposed as data sets. You can set up things like record level security to ensure that the users have access to the right information, so that that way you can curate the data that is available to them and make sure that you're not, you know, you're giving them the right information that's going to be most useful to them.
Okay. Yeah, I'm glad to know I can still have that level of control. I do like the idea that the users can make it themselves. I do wonder though, like in terms of adopting this for new users, I definitely wouldn't just want to like throw them a link and say have at it, good luck. Training wise, does Appian have any materials or anything that can help new users kind of adopt this and figure out how to use the tool?
Yeah, we are working on some training that will be released as part of 24.1. And you know, you'll continue to see us release some more information. For the most part, we do want to keep it pretty easy though, right? We want to make it so that you don't need to go read a lot of documentation on how this works, that users can come in and just try things out, right? Just find data sets that are interesting to them, explore the data that's available, and hopefully, you know, they're able to find the insights that they need really quickly without additional training.
Yeah. I am also curious. I'm sure you know some people have questions on this. What about security, Pete? What about there's a question in the chat. Is this only for synced records? So what are kind of the requirements of your records such that a person could see and use them in self-service analytics?
Yeah, so currently this is just for synced record types, but there is also configurations within the record type designer. So if you go into a record type, you'll see there's actually a new workspaces section where you can identify which record types are shown within the self-service analytics, the data fabric analytics, right? So in that area, that's the curation that I was talking about, where you can identify, okay, this record type makes sense to expose to users, whereas in some cases it may not make sense. So you as the developer still have control over which record types are available in self-service analytics.
And then in terms of security, right? It honors all the record security that you may have had set up of this person can not see this record, this person can only see certain rows, etc.
Absolutely. So yeah, if you've set it so that a user does not have view access to the record type, then they will not be able to see it within self-service analytics, right? And even at a row level, if you have limited it to only give access to certain rows, then they will only see those rows within any reports that they create as well.
So this is, I mean, another just example of you take the time to set up your synced records and suddenly you have all this free unlocked power and things you don't need to worry about again. Nicole, were you skeptical about synced records when they first came out, and like how do you feel about them now?
Yeah, well, there was a bit of a learning curve. I remember one time making a bunch of changes right before a demo and being totally confused why my new rows weren't appearing, only to realize that I had to actually sync the synced record in order for my data to appear. But the more I use it, the more I like it. Especially, I really love using the RF bang and getting to see everything pop up dynamically instead of having to do like I do with CDTs and open up the CDT and remind myself what the column name is sometimes. That's really nice.
We don't use CDTs around here anymore. Not a, no, I'm kidding.
We don't talk about them.
Yeah, I mean, synced records, you know, it's synced records, self-service analytics, all of this stuff, right? It's making your life easier so you can like do more interesting things and get more done, right? Like, oh, I don't have to worry about setting X, Y, and Z. Oh, I can just hand the report building over to the end user. Like, what's next? What more can I do? Right? Like, I always say this, but I think back to my academy project and I'm like, I could do that thing in like 2 hours or less now compared to like the whatever week plus that it took 5 years ago. So
yeah, and I think a lot of it is just trying to make it so that records can be used everywhere in the platform, right? Like we know that data is such a key part of building applications, right? So let's make it so that you can easily access it, both within building your applications, but also for your users. And I think it's been a very rewarding journey for me in particular because we've been planning a lot of these features like data fabric analytics for years, right? From the very beginning when we introduced records. But we knew that we had to build out the framework for supporting synced records in all the other ways, right? With relationships, with security, with custom record fields to really make it valuable once you get to the kind of environment where you have end users reporting on the data.
There's a question, Pete, and I was trying to look it up because basically someone mentioned, you can use the old CDT approach, right? And just like you were saying earlier, create a synced record that points to a table already, but you need to just make sure that you're syncing, after anytime you make an update. And so how do you sync from things that are not already synced records? Like how do you kick off that sync?
So it depends on how you're making the changes, but if you're just writing the data in Appian, so let's say that you're writing through the write to data store entity smart service.
Mhm.
If that's the case, any change that you make through that will also update your sync data. So you
Oh,
don't
wow.
have
Okay.
to have any separate mechanism for syncing and keeping all of that. Assuming all your changes are made in Appian, then it should be current. If you're making changes outside of Appian, there's also some other ways that you can keep it current. We have a sync record smart service. To be honest, I could spend a lot more time talking about
Yeah.
the different ways that you can manage your data. But the goal is to make it so that regardless of which mechanism you're using, we're able to sync and keep your data up to date.
Yeah. That's good to know. Yeah, that's what I was trying to look for, but it was taking a second to load. Yeah, there is a sync records smart service, but I didn't know that if you use the write to data store, it actually works as well. So that's pretty exciting. Um,
Yeah.
all right, this hour has gone by pretty quickly, and this is basically like a lot of total experience developer updates. There's a ton of other great stuff with this release, so make sure you check out the recording of the release webinar and our product release area on community, where we're going to be posting, even more resources to make sure everything that's going on. I want to give a chance for any other questions to come through. We have one that came through from Dan Yui, who said, is there any indication to the user that some data isn't included in an aggregation due to security settings? I'm wondering if they may misinterpret data if they don't know that.
Yeah, it's a good question. It's something that we are definitely considering. At the moment, there is no indication. So the aggregations will refer only to the data that they currently have available to them. But it's a great question and something that I think we would like to expose at some point. Like a good scenario could be something like I want to know how many cases, like the average time to complete a case across my entire environment, even if I can only personally see my cases, right? So things like that are really valuable use cases and things that we're considering for the future.
Um, yeah, Nicole, any questions you have for Pete? I mean, here's your chance to be the voice of the people and ask a hard hitting question, maybe.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking, not to harp on it too much, but for the training, I mean, like I look at this interface and it feels so straightforward from a developer perspective. But I feel like you got people who use Appian, and I mean, it's a credit to the system, but some people use Appian and they don't even know that they're in Appian because they just log in and they do the work there. And then I
Yep.
imagine giving them an interface like this and saying, just go for it. And I feel like I would get the most helpless stares in exchange. And yeah, that's probably my biggest concern with something like this is users not really knowing how to adopt it and choosing not to just because they feel overwhelmed.
Mm. Yeah, that's good feedback. I mean, it's definitely something that we have looked at as we've designed this. So we've done usability testing with end users in mind, right? And actually having end users test it out to make sure that they're able to understand how to build and manage these. And up to this point, we've gotten really good feedback. But it's always something that I would suggest that you try it yourself and have your users try it out. And our goal is always to keep it streamlined and make it really easy for users to understand how it works.
Yeah.
Well, if you're looking for more YouTube content, April, maybe a series on how to get started with self-service analytics could be a good one.
No, that's a really good point. And also reminder about our community edition, our new experience beta, that does have self-service analytics enabled. So if you go check that out, you can make some records and go try it out for yourself. I mean, if you have any feedback, let us know, post on community, etc. Okay, is self-service analytics part of the base product or is it a paid add-on?
Yeah, so this is something that is going to be a paid add-on for some customers. We're introducing some new ways of how we do licenses at Appian, and this is going to be something that is available to certain customers. I will say that for customers on like you were saying on the community edition sites, April, definitely take a look and explore it, and you can take a look at how it works and try it out for yourself.
Here's the updated pricing page on Appian.com, so you can see we have 3 tiers, and it's from the second tier that it starts including that self-service analytics. So this is over on Appian.com pricing page if you need more information there. Cool. Okay. I see another note. We want to know more about the prompt builder. That is also a very exciting new feature, but we are almost at an hour already and just focused on data fabric, total experience things. So we'll definitely need to have a follow-up live stream about what's new with AI skills, about case management studio, about all of those things. But for now, you can go check out our product webinar and see all of the updates, and reach out. Let me know which ones you would like to do a deep dive in with an external guest, a PM, so we can get those things going. Okay, any last thoughts, Pete or Nicole, that you would like to share with the audience? Encouragement to embrace new features and go ahead and flourish with 24.1.
Honestly, I'm just excited to use that scrollable pane window. I can't wait.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to see all the exciting things you guys build. Share them out. Cool. Okay. Well, this has been a lot of fun. I think we had a lot of great engagement in the chat. So thanks everyone who asked questions, was helping each other, saying hello. Thanks Pete and Nicole for coming on. We'll just do a couple of quick announcements before we close out. So first reminder, Appian World's coming up April 15th through 17th. And along with all the other exciting things that happen at Appian World, we have an expanded developer day that is free with your Appian World registration. So you can check that out. Pete and I will be there. You can talk to Pete about the product and give some encouragement to product management. You can talk to me about whatever. And, so we have Dev Day coming up. We have more live streams in the future, including next month, we'll be doing one deep diving into translation sets. So if you have any specific questions there, let me know. And other than that, yeah, check out the new product release area in our community edition beta. So Pete, Nicole, thank you guys so much.
Thanks,
Thank
April.
you.
Appreciate it.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.